Hello and welcome to Building the Premier Accounting Firm. This is a podcast dedicated to helping you as the individual start, build, and have the premier accounting firm in your area, offering quality accounting services and getting paid what you're worth. Whether you're actually working as a solo entrepreneur, offering these quality services, or running a firm with partners, accounting professionals, it makes no difference. This is meant to actually help you address the challenges that we face that range from marketing, selling, client onboarding, quality accounting services, offering those things that the client needs that exceed their expectations. Basically, the gamut is there for us to address each and every week with the experts. Now, as your host, I've been doing this for over 20 years. I'm Roger Knecht, president of Universal Accounting Center, and for more than 20 years, I've been helping accounting professionals start and build their accounting businesses around the world. And it's in this process that I've actually learned many lessons, but at the same time built incredible friendships with amazing individuals. And I'm excited to have you on the show for today. We happen to have a guest, someone I've known for a number of years. It's Laura Shepard. And Laura happens to be someone that, like you, is running a successful accounting business. She started back in 2016, her most recent company, where she offers quality accounting services through My Top Bookkeeper. It's here that she offers full charge bookkeeping services using accounting cycle and GAAP guidelines to produce, explain, and substantiate all the results that she produces for her clients. It's a fancy way of saying that when it comes to putting your financials in front of your CPA, lender, investor, IRS, etc., you have the confidence in the results because you know they are right when working with Laura Shepard. So, Laura, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Roger. I'm happy to be here.
This is going to be fun. You know, I know that over the years we've had a few conversations, and today's going to be no different. So with your situation today, why don't we just start with kind of an update? What's new about your business, and how did you fare during the pandemic?
Oh, gosh. Well, the pandemic for us really didn't change much. You know, all of my peers and everything working from home, and we had actually just gone from in Phoenix, where I started, gone from a commercial building to a home office. So my assistant in Arizona went into a home office about 2 months before the pandemic hit.
That's called fortuitous timing then.
And my husband and I, found our forever home in Tillamook, Oregon.
Oh, my heavens. So that's a big difference between Arizona and Oregon. Those are two totally different environments.
And I absolutely love Oregon. We've been here now for about 7 years, and I tell people I am still not fully rehydrated after living in Arizona for 32 years.
Amazing. So with your transition, moving your business, I think that's an excellent place to start. How did that evolve with your clients as you were moving from one location to another? Were they adaptive in the sense that they were willing to work with you remotely? How was it growing your business in a new space? Share with us a few of those insights.
Well, you know what? Our clients really did not see any change. We stopped providing on-site bookkeeping services quite a few years ago. And one of my bookkeepers had a really interesting experience that was a dangerous experience. And it shook us all so much, we just decided that going on site with people probably wasn't a good idea, especially when virtual services can be maintained without the clients seeing any disruption. So we were very fortunate that big a change, me as the leader in the company, making such a dramatic move, and our clients weren't fazed a bit.
So now that you've moved from Phoenix to Oregon, one of the things that you have to then do is grow your business perhaps in that new space. Do you have a feel for how many of your clients are where you are now versus where you were in Phoenix?
That's a really interesting conversation. So when I first moved here in 2015, the cannabis market, they had just gone recreational here. And I am a huge advocate, having experienced my own benefit medically. I'm a huge advocate for this movement. When I can't grow a plant and I can't sell anything, but I'm a great accountant. And that industry, that niche needs people like us who are, who believe it's an important movement. And I'm a great accounting person. So I came into this area I just got lucky. I went to a conference here in Portland for cannabis business owners. And actually, it wasn't cannabis. It was like a general business conference. And I met several people who were specifically in the cannabis market. And from that, I just, my experience and my, what is it called? Like the word just went out of my head. But I got a reputation basically for understanding what cannabis businesses need. And it's not just, in the business and controlling cash, which is an astronomical issue.
Yes.
But creating the processes for those business owners to protect themselves from the two most vulnerable assets that are lost, cash and inventory. You're working with a cash-based or a cash-heavy business and your inventory is marijuana. What could possibly go wrong?
Now, you've said the word cash a few times, just for the listeners to point this out, because of the early days of how it was still regulated at the federal level and the interstate laws and so forth. There were banking issues and so forth that caused the business to initially start as an industry that was entirely cash-based. And so you had a lot of cash going back and forth. And if you can imagine a business where cash is being used to make payroll, pay vendors, everything is cash-based. It's kind of an interesting dynamic. And from an accounting perspective, it's almost like cash becomes an inventory. It's that interesting. So anything you want to add to that?
There are a lot of people who are interested in getting into the cannabis niche. And it's not all fun and games. It's not. It is highly regulated. There are still very few financial institutions that will work with cannabis businesses. In Oregon, it's only a couple of credit unions, and it is still illegal the federal government says it's illegal, so mainstream banks are not accessible.
That's right.
To cannabis to this day. So they're still extremely cash heavy. Yep. And controlling that is an unbelievable challenge, because not only do we as accounting professionals come in and try to, get our heads and our arms wrapped around that, trying to convince the day-to-day people in the operations that this is critical to implement these control processes, that in itself is an uphill challenge.
Yeah.
When I first started with this, I would see vendors come in literally with a bag full of marijuana. The business manager would hand them several $1,000s in cash, and no document was passed between hands.
Yeah, that sounds like an accounting nightmare right there.
But you know what? We created the process. We're going to talk a little bit about the bookkeeping process. We created a very strong bookkeeping process for all of those businesses, whether it's a retailer, a farm, a distributor, whatever niche segment within the niche, we've created the processes.
Yeah, what you just brought up, I think, is very interesting. The grower, the accounting needs that they have at that farm level is much different than the accounting and business model that exists at the dispensary level, let's say. So definitely two different things. You're dealing with two different businesses that are part of the same industry, but they are unique as to their needs, because when you're a grower, you're not dealing necessarily with the consumer, and you're not dealing with the packaging and the inventory. So there's a lot of things that are different at those different stages. And so they're unique clients at both levels. So you talked about creating a process. Let's talk about the process that you found that is needed or unique to the industry. What can you tell us about that process or the steps involved?
One of the things that bookkeeping and accounting professionals really struggle with is the right process, the right checklist, understanding the right or the actual objectives and needs and what it takes to produce that. The bookkeeping process diagram that you've seen is based upon the manual accounting cycle, the old one that you and I are familiar with, right? The old one. Sorry, Roger.
Well, I do sit here with gray hair, so I'm totally fine with that. I've embraced myself, and I'm happy with who I am. Yes, you're talking about. I'm imagining a green visor, an armband. I've got my abacus out, and so I'm ready to go to work. But what you talk about, and you've named your process, the future of bookkeeping beyond debits and credits. Is this what we're referring to right now?
Yes, it is. Mm-hmm.
So you have 8 steps, and I think it'd be nice to kind of just real quickly state what those steps are. And if needed, we may be able to dive into one or two of them. What are the 8 steps that you felt are essential as part of this process?
That's a great question. And first, I want to take a little bit of a higher level review of that and say that there's really 3 segments.
Okay.
And the 3 segments contain the steps within. The first segment is really based on general bookkeeping, and that's very task centric, right? And then the second segment is about month-end closing the books and making sure that everything is where it should be. And then the third segment, that gets to that accounting advisor level, the CFO level of financial reports. And as you said, the ability to present, explain, discuss, and support those results.
You know, as you're describing that, I just want to elaborate a little bit on this, because I think this is hugely important. Taking the accounting process and breaking it down to these 3 steps is very, very helpful when looking at what we do and what it is our clients are asking of us. The first is that bookkeeping is preparing recording all the transactions, tracking everything down, getting it documented. But then that second step is preparing the reports and getting the reports in useful formats that the business owner can utilize to make informed business decisions. But then the last step, as you were describing, is then coming into that advisory role and showing our perceptions, providing our insights, giving our perspective, and asking the right questions. Because now that the data has been captured and gathered, now that it's being reported, therefore what are we doing with it? And that 3-step process that you just shared is, I think, spot on. So thank you for that.
Oh, thank you for recognizing that. When I recognized that, I was looking at the manual cycle and I thought, man, you know what? The only thing that has changed really are the first 4 steps. And that is all about gathering all of the data and putting it where it belongs. One of the steps that some bookkeepers just totally fly by is, what is it that they need to gather?
Mm-hmm.
Bookkeepers I see on different social media platforms ask, does somebody have a checklist? That terrifies me, because if they don't know what their client needs, then how are they going to serve them? And serve them effectively so that the financials that they produce can be used to manage the business. So I really have created this diagram that helps bookkeepers recognize where they are. And it also gives them the opportunity to identify their own goals and to take the steps that's going to support their long-term game. So this is really a tool for the bookkeepers, not only to demonstrate to their clients, this is what we do. By the way, business owners understand what we do. Since I started demonstrating to business owners using this diagram what it is that we do, and breaking it down into relatable terms. Business owners don't care the steps that we take. They want the results, right?
That's so true. So let's start with the steps then. I know you've chunked them into 3 segments. There's 8 total steps. Let's talk about the first segment, the gathering of the data, recording the data. What are those steps?
Well, with technology, so much has changed just in that segment, but the first step is all about gathering information. You and I both know that one of the greatest challenges for accounting professionals is getting the information that they need. Everybody cries about that, and it is so true. So we start with a checklist and we gather everything that we know. I start a checklist by looking at a balance sheet. General bookkeepers might not start with that same perspective. So they gather information and then we enter it. Well, entering information because of automation, that's not really a big deal anymore. And the problem with that is it dilutes a bookkeeper's understanding of what it is. Now, confirming that all of the data came over from an external system, that can be pretty, vanilla. You're grabbing a summary report from an external platform and comparing it to what automatically synced into QuickBooks. And if you're lucky, they match.
Yeah. So what I'm understanding, and I think you've done a good job of summarizing it, is whether we're doing this through software where we've got this integration and the data is importing, or you're back at the good old days of you've got to get a physical copy of something. Your job is to collect the data, and whether it's that paper trail or you're getting the import of that data, you need to make sure the data is coming in, and then with that being said, you've got to be making sure that it's categorized correctly. You've got to reconcile everything. Once that's done and you've checked, then we can say, okay, all the data is collected. We've got it all. Now we can start preparing or running reports. Is that a fair step to go to the next level?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes. What I also noticed in looking at the old model is there is a very distinctive separation between general knowledge and something at a higher level, which is the month-end closing. Being able to completely close the month requires us to not only confirm that all of the data is in there, but review it and make sure that it's right. Step 4 is review. I also refer to this as the errors and omissions checkpoint. And I tell my clients, if I can't explain it, it doesn't exist. So if I get to step 4 and I can't explain something, then I'm going to go back to my client and say, I need something more. Also, when I tell them the only time I need you is step 1 and step 4, then their relief goes through the roof. They're like, okay, she's not going to ask me stuff that I don't know, that I don't understand. We're going to get very super specific.
Yeah.
And I tell my clients, as I said, if I can't explain it, it doesn't exist. That just resonates with people. And they understand, okay, we're dealing with data and she can't close the month unless this is answered. So I can now hold the clients accountable for their participation in the cycle. Once we pass step 4, we've already made sure that all of the general ledger accounts contain the information that they should. We've double checked, we can cross-reference. Now we can close the month and we can produce those operational reports that the business owners need.
So let me kind of bring everyone up to speed here. And as I do this, I'm imagining someone is going to pause the podcast, write this down, press play, pause the podcast. So if you're the listener, obviously consider doing this. But let me real quickly just summarize where we're at here. So Laura, first of all, this future of bookkeeping beyond debits and credits begins with step 1, gathering the statements and other documents. Once we've gathered everything, step 2 is to enter the data, the money in, money out flow, document everything. Step 3 is to check your work and confirm the results. We want to just make sure that at a first glance, with our sixth sense, the wisdom that we have with the client, is everything in order? Is there anything missing? Step 4 is review the data for errors and omissions. So now we're looking at the data and we're trying to see what is the information telling us. There's a narrative here. What are we pulling from it? Does anything not make sense? Step 5 is reconcile the bank, credit card accounts, and all other asset liability accounts. So we're basically going to go through and just look at each of those individually. Step 6 is to print the month-end reports and close the books. So here we are. We've got books in hand. The client is anxiously anticipating what data and reports we have to give them, but we're not done yet. We've got 2 more steps. Let's go to step 7. What happens now?
Well, this is where we really get into where we earn our money. This is where we can really demonstrate how we can help our clients increase their own wealth, increase their own bottom line, because now we can say, let's look at a couple of these things and we know that they're accurate. We, in that third segment, can rely on the data to make really good recommendations to our client. And being able to review that and understand it ourselves is critically important for a bookkeeper accounting person who wants to get into that advisory role. Being able to fluently talk about the financial statements and what it means is critically important. Bookkeepers and some business owners think that bookkeeping is all one thing. Mm-hmm. And if you can do segment 1, then segment 2 should be pretty easy, and then we're CPA ready. No, there's a third segment that must be completed.
And what's that?
Well, going from the operational bookkeeping reports or the operational accounting reports and making sure that they are GAAP compliant, that those basic operational reports are demonstrating, okay, my income or my revenue and my cost, that's reasonable. I can compare that to previous periods of time and it looks reasonable. And now I can explain it. I can put this in front of a CPA and demonstrate all of the information that you need to put on a tax return. Here it is. And it's in a format that they can get. And I'm the go-between between the operational, understanding the operational financial information and what the CPA needs, what the IRS is looking for, what lenders want to see. They call me the missing link, actually, because I'm that between the 6 and 7 and 8, can help business owners really make sure that they are ready and ready for the IRS.
Yeah.
Can I tell you a really cool story about an audit?
Please.
Oh, this was so much fun. Talk about earning your keep, okay? So going back to the cannabis realm, if someone, and this is anybody, if someone deposits more than $10,000 in cash, that immediately kicks off a red flag. They have to file when they make that deposit. My goodness, I'm trying to remember the form number, but with the bank, they have to file a form that says where this money came from. One of my producers deposited more than 10 grand and didn't fill out that form, immediately got flagged for an audit.
Yeah.
A revenue audit. Okay. So he, talked to the agent a couple of times, and then they wanted to talk to me, and they scheduled about an hour. Now, we follow the bookkeeping process. Every month, every box gets checked. So when the agent started asking me questions, I could point to the step in the diagram and say, this is what we do, this is where the information comes from, and here's how we prove it. And every month it happens the same way. And after about 15 minutes, the agent on the phone asked the supervisor on the phone, do you have any other questions? Because I think we got everything we need. And I'm like, drop the mic. My work here is done.
So what you're sharing there is obviously the be-all, end-all of why we're doing this. At the end of the day, what we're trying to bring to the client is peace of mind. As questions come in, especially in the industry that you're dealing with, there's going to be this scrutiny. And if we can actually now, through the documentation, provide the answers that are needed, you're going to have that moment like you just had, and definitely, as you mentioned, drop the mic. And that's amazing. That's a huge accomplishment, Laura.
I was pretty pleased. So was the client. When you can stop an IRS agent from having questions, I mean, that's amazing.
Well, they know that they've got other fish to fry once they realize that you're somewhat organized. So that's excellent. That's I think, an excellent example of where we can make a difference for our clients. And that's the peace of mind that they're paying us for. It's not the data entry that we're looking for. It's the processes that we're using that provide that peace of mind. So that's wonderful. I want to take and summarize this, but I want to bring it back to something that's really important, because step 7 was obviously this financial statement and compliance review. Step 8 was present, explain, substantiate the reported results. That's going to be, I think, a very big part of what I want to discuss next, which starts with this question. I'm a big process guy. I like systems. I like having something that I can lean on and follow and have expected results. How did creating for yourself this future bookkeeping beyond debits and credits 8-step process, how did it help you? How did it help your business, your employees, your clients? How have you found that this process for you really made a difference?
I would say the number one answer truly is it allowed me to demonstrate my value very easily to a client. It allowed me to demonstrate how I am different from another bookkeeper and how I meet their expectations. And that was really a big game changer for me. Is I no longer went in to talk with a client to tell them what I do. I went in and said, this is what you get.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
These are the results that you can expect, and I can back it up, because if I can't answer it, if I can't speak to it, I'm going to go back through my process to step 1. Then business owners started to understand what it is we do. And when they could see the difference between general bookkeeping and data entry, which I know we hate to say that, but it is what it is, and month-end closing, those are relatable terms that the client, they've heard those terms, and they start to understand that bookkeeping is not just data entry. You have to pass this checkpoint. And by the way, bookkeepers and accounting advisors, their ears perk up when you say errors and omissions. And so do business owners. So, pardon me, they understand that the value of what we do happens in the second segment when we're closing their books and we're telling them, here's how your business is doing. And understanding the balance sheet is the most critical, important part of that second segment. Looking at a month-end operational balance sheet and knowing whether or not that's correct, knowing what the impact is for the business owner. Does the business owner have a reasonable cash flow? Can a general bookkeeper tell them that? Probably not. So you need somebody who can be in that advanced level, and business owners start to recognize the value.
As you're describing all that, I didn't know what you're going to say and how this process really impacted your business. And I was pleased to hear that you started with the marketing and the selling side of it. Many of our listeners would know that one of the things that we talk about regularly with my guests happen to be mapping the business and addressing the three areas of every company: marketing and sales, accounting services, and the production, the fulfillment side of it. And for you to take this process and clearly show that for you, this system, these 8 steps, has helped you at the marketing level distinguish your services as being different than the competitor, helping the client at the sales level realize what it is they're going to be paying for and what it is you'll be doing. But then you go to the second level, the accounting services, you're able to show that you're doing the bookkeeping, what steps are involved in that bookkeeping process. You're able to show how you're doing the accounting, providing the quality reports that are needed and giving them the information to better run their businesses. But then the third element is the advisory that you're going to then complement all that information with and help them now apply these things in their business to be much more profitable and successful. All of a sudden, you've got here this process that you can implement internally with your employees and have them follow repeatedly with your clients. It's something that you can use as a checklist to know, is everything for this client done for the month, for the year? All of those things, I think, are just excellent examples of why processes and systems can be so beneficial in a business, especially when we're running an accounting and tax business. So, well said, well done. Now, with all of this, there are 4 things that bookkeepers need to have to offer good quality bookkeeping services. You've kind of outlined what they are. I wanted to talk about them. You mentioned to me once that they need to have the accounting knowledge, they need to have the technical skills, the business experience, and then the ability to put it all together. Let's talk about those. When you're talking about accounting knowledge, technical skills, business experience, and ability, what would you say about those 4 things?
Technical skills really are about what resources you use to get everything together. Pardon me. Whether you use, QuickBooks or Xero or whatever, that part of it, knowing what you need to get out of that, but knowing how it's applied. People don't understand that you don't need a million different apps. What you need is an effective platform to get you the information that you need. The accounting knowledge, I actually should take one step back. The accounting knowledge has to be based on general terms, tasks, and concepts. You don't need to know everything about accounting to know that you've completed that data management part of it. So just having an understanding of general accounting terms, let's start there. Then the technical skills, understanding what you need to know and what you don't need to know. I don't need to know every single thing about how, for attorneys, for example, Clio, or in property management, how AppFolio works. I don't need to know all of that. I need to know how to get the information that I need. The third piece is the business experience. A bookkeeper and an accounting advisor, they need to have a general understanding of how business works, because it's the operational level of activity, the operational money coming in, the operational money going out. A bookkeeper needs to understand that and how a business generates that information and how they need to use it based on their niche. Finally, being able to pull it all together and being able to actually serve your client, produce, right? Bookkeepers tend to fly by their own setup process. their own, here's what I need to do to operate my business. I need to be able to engage a client and know what they need, and then be able to serve them and be able to produce what the client wants in a timeline in a way that they can use it. And a lot of bookkeepers just go right from, I want to be a bookkeeper, which we all know they're self-proclaimed until they prove it, right? But from being that to, sorry, I actually just lost my train of thought.
Well, where I think you might be going is the fact that many bookkeepers actually lack the confidence to take their relationships with their clients to another level, which is beyond just preparing the financial reports. For many accounting professionals, what happens is there's that moment. I consider it like an epiphany. It's that moment where all of a sudden you feel validated that your voice matters, that you can ask the right questions with your clients. And in fact, you can change the relationship that you have with your clients from merely producing the financial reports to now transversing over into the advisory role. And as you get into that space, there's a confidence that comes from that. But really, I think that confidence is, in my opinion, tied to a process. Unless you know what you're going to be doing with your client month after month after month, it's kind of hard to have them pay additional fees for a service that's not clearly defined in your own mind. And so one of the things that I think we're basically looking at here is you've got the experience, you've got the technical skills, the knowledge, but we've got to put it all together, as you're pointing out. And as you put it together, package it, that it's now a service beyond just bookkeeping services, beyond accounting services. It's ultimately at the end being what we refer to as a profit and growth expert, but it's that complete package where you really get to make the difference with your clients and become, as many people will describe, as a strategic partner. You're someone they can lean on as they're trying to make decisions in their business. Does that remind or help you with your train of thought as you were going there?
Yes, it absolutely does. And process is everything, and confidence is everything. When your client comes to you and has a question, if you can point to, consistently, this is what we do, and being able to do that and produce that consistently, that's huge for a client. If they have an outlier, you going to them, and an outlier, something, looking at a financial report, if you can see something that is inconsistent, call that an outlier and go ask a question. Confidence is absolutely required to ask a question.
Yep. One of the things I just recently experienced, and I'm going to share this only because I hope it helps illustrate. In the business consulting that we actually do, I don't perform the accounting for the clients, and they have either internally or contracted out the accounting services. But in taking the financials and meeting with my business clients, I'm continually assessing, analyzing, asking questions about. And in this most recent meeting, they produced a balance sheet, and the balance sheet did not look right. There were some negative numbers up in the asset side, and I just was perplexed why the accountant chose to reflect, in this case, a line of credit in a negative way. And not to get into the details, but it was interesting to go back to the accountant and say, hey, by the way, I noticed this. I wanted to point out that there are some suggestions I'd like to make to better reflect this and help it so that the client isn't confused why their assets are in a negative. And the answer back from the accountant was just a simple, oh, thank you for pointing out the error. I see what you're referring to, made the adjustment, and voila, we're back up and running. Well, there's a collaborative relationship going on in this particular example, but wouldn't it have been nice that the accountant would have noticed this on their own before producing it and giving it to the client? And what we're trying to do here is just point out that these numbers matter. There's an emotional connection that the business owner has as they look at the numbers. They oftentimes just look at the totals. They're not familiar with all of the components that make up that information. And so we've got to do a better job of helping them not only understand the numbers, but realize that there's an emotional connection to them. This is what they're doing on a day-to-day basis to run their business. And it'd be nice to point out that it's working, that they're actually making money and doing well at what they're doing. And so those are the things that we want to be able to celebrate. Laura, I want to kind of move towards wrapping this up, but before we get too much farther, I wanted to ask, you've shared an example of how your clients are happier because of these processes and what you're doing with them. You've shared how by choosing to niche into the cannabis space, you've had more opportunities. I'm curious, has this process, this system that you've implemented, help you actually increase your revenue? Are you doing more financially because of what you're doing now?
Absolutely. I'll give you the real quick about this.
Okay.
Everybody asks about and has this major debate on whether hourly is the right way to go. Flat. Nobody can describe value, so let's just throw that one out the door.
Okay.
But, and I say that facetiously, we really can. We just need to know what to say. But when I was able to demonstrate to a client the differences between general bookkeeping and month end closing and understanding the financials that we're going to put in front of them, to your point, you don't show negative assets, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you have to be able to understand what you're looking at. And then also to demonstrate the compliance level. And I didn't really touch on compliance, but there are certain service businesses that must meet compliance standards. Attorneys are one of them. Property management is another. If you have a business, a retail business that has sales tax, there are compliance issues around that. And when we can say to our client, I got you on this. I can prepare your financials and do the 3-point reconciliation to satisfy the bar, right? When we can do that, our value goes up. I've separated the general bookkeeping from month end closing to preparing financial statements for your CPA. That's value.
Mm-hmm.
And now I can say the first segment is task oriented, and I'm going to charge you hourly for that. I can quantify it, I can demonstrate the time. Great. I can do hourly for that. I can't do hourly when it comes to going through an errors and omissions checkpoint and producing the month end financials that you need. I have 10 or 20 years of experience. You're not going to pay me for 20 years or hours by the hour, you know. But then demonstrating the value, showing them what they get in that third segment. And that's where you really make money. So my revenue went up immediately, my top line revenue, because I was able to separate tasks from month end closing. Month end closing happens every single month. It should. And so that has to be a flat fee. So now I'm combining the different types of billing and clients understand it. And that's how you increase revenue when your clients understand what you do, how it needs to be done, and what they get. It's what they get from it. That's really the value.
Yeah. So I'm going to put you on the spot, and I'm hoping this isn't going to be too awkward, but can you share with us what either your average client revenue increase was? Meaning before you were doing this, your average client was, say, $700, $800, $1,000 a month. And now because you're doing this, you've been able to see just an average increase, not necessarily per client, but average within the firm, that your revenue per client went from, say, $600 a month to now you're at $1,200 a month. Do you know offhand any of those numbers?
I would say 30%, just easily 30%
Excellent.
per client.
Excellent.
Revenue went up.
My experience has been, as you take the services that you're currently offering today, the things that your clients pay you to do, when you look back and see over the past year what it is you're doing, and then consider what value adds you can bring in for the new year revenue, and then you package that, go to your existing clients, a portion of those will actually be willing to, if you've bundled it well, pay for that additional service. And so if you've got 20 clients and you've got 5 of them that say, yeah, I see worth in that, I see value in that, I like our relationship, I think you have insights that would be beneficial, I'll pay for this additional service above and beyond the bookkeeping, the accounting, the tax that you're performing. You get those 5 to come along. Obviously, in that case, you may see as much as a 25% increase in your earnings or revenue for the year simply because you added a totally new revenue stream to your business model for that new year. Well, in your case, you're saying as much as 30, 33, 35% increase. That's amazing. That's awesome. And one of the things that I think is encouraging here is as accounting professionals, it gives us that interest to say, well, what about my business? What about my clients? How can I implement this with them and move into more of that advisory role? And I appreciate you sharing that with us today. Here's what I'd like to do. So, Laura, I'm going to ask you to kind of give a closing thought in a moment. I'm going to just mention an offer that we have for our listeners, and I'm going to do a summary real quickly of our conversation. Before I come to you for your closing thoughts, let me just point out that as an offer, one of the things Laura has made available is she has prepared or created this self-assessment accounting knowledge. It's basically meant to give you an idea of how you're doing with the accounting knowledge, the technical skills, the business experience. And in doing the self-assessment, maybe identify what your strengths are, where your areas of opportunity are, and what it is that you could perhaps do to take your business to that new level, that your own skill set to that new level. And so in the episode description, I'll be providing information there as to where you can go and take this free assessment and take advantage of the opportunity to see what it is that you can maybe do to move your own business forward, offering additional services. And related to this, I would actually like to encourage everyone to consider becoming what is referred to as a profit and growth expert. The profit and growth expert is a designation designed for accounting professionals to show that you're actually offering with confidence CFO and advisory services. It's as a profit and growth expert that you actually learn how to market and sell advisory services confidently, how to provide those services and deliver on them over a 12 plus long engagement. And it's in that process that you're obviously adding to your business model this additional revenue stream that then complements all the services that you're currently providing today. So check out this self-assessment that Laura is providing for us, as well as becoming a profit and growth expert within your firm. Now, as a summary of our conversation today, I was looking forward to this because I knew it was going to come up. Laura is, like me, someone that's very interested in processes, and she created, I felt, a very simplistic but yet very clear 8-step process that can be easily used to not only market and sell services, but then internally process them, make sure that we're meeting what our client needs are, and then deliver on those. And one of the things that I thought was helpful is just the summation of what those 8 steps consisted of. Just going through that, I'm sure, was a fresh reminder for a lot of us and maybe gave us a few epiphanies of things that we could be doing on each of those steps to either systematize them better, automate them to streamline them, or better said, actually do them more effectively for our clients. The other thing that I wanted to point out is I thought her explanations of how that process materialized or benefited the business at the opportunity level, at the sales and marketing level, at the fulfillment level, and honestly, having happy customers, having them actually see the win doing this with them as a client. Now, the other thing that I'd also like to add is just Laura's enthusiasm for the bookkeeping profession. I see in Laura, in myself, in so many people, this thing where at night, what do we think about? It's this process, it's this system, it's what we're doing for our clients, and it's how we can actually take our business and make it better as well as improve the client relations that we have. And so I appreciate that enthusiasm that she brings to this world of the accounting profession. So thank you for that. The last thing I'd like to point out is with regards to Laura, I appreciate the fact that she takes serious what she's doing, because each of us in our own right need to look at what can we be doing better and more for our clients. And her illustration of going into the niche of the cannabis world, getting excited and passionate about what that industry looks like and how she can benefit those clients, that's something that I was kind of excited by, because there's a lot of things that I'm doing in that space and others that I think is very influential. And it's nice to see that there's people out there like Laura that have this interest. And so that's always exciting as well. So Laura, what closing thoughts would you have for us today?
Well, bookkeepers need to be open. The younger bookkeepers, the ones who are just coming in, need to be open to learning. Build that confidence. And when your clients see that confidence, they come after you. When I was really able to show the diagram, point to it and say, this is what I know and this is what I can deliver to you, of course, my confidence level went through the roof, and so did my clients. So much so that one of my clients said, I want to give you a bonus this month. How many bookkeepers have their clients come to them and say, I want to give you a bonus? I took that as a great sign of success.
That's what I was going to say. That is right there, the indication of you're doing something right and well. It's obvious that you're appreciated and valued, and that's a good indication of it. So that's good. Here's what I'm going to do. Let's go ahead and wrap this up. I want to obviously encourage all of our listeners for you to take advantage of free resources that are available with this podcast. You can go to the episode description and see additional resources that are intended to help you as you're working on your business and, in fact, building the company that you would like to have. Is it about fame or is it about fortune? Is it about offering good quality bookkeeping, tax, advisory services? It allows you to actually take advantage of a variety of resources there to assist you in fact, building the premier accounting firm in your area. Also, be sure to check out information about GrowCon. GrowCon is an accounting conference for professionals who work in their business as well as on. It's enabling you to actually get the information you need, hear from the experts, meet and greet peers that are literally like you running successful accounting businesses and implementing from the conference the very things that you need to go back and do in your business to, in fact, build the company that you've always desired to have. So check out information regarding GrowCon and when that conference is next. The last thing I'd like to point out is, obviously, because this is a podcast, be sure to subscribe to the podcast. It's from that you can get the notifications of upcoming episodes, and also check out the past episodes that we have had with a variety of experts on the show that share insights that you need to be aware of as you're running your business. Always remember this. If you're interested in these principles, applying them in your business, would like to check out more, you can visit us at universalaccounting.com, or you can actually call us at 801-265-3777. Do remember, if it's about accounting, it is universal. Do take care, be safe out there, and have a great day.